Okay, guys, so this is the big video. This is the video where I go through some of the larger categories of what essentially is in this budget. And it threw me for a massive tailspin because what President Biden had originally promoted through his, pre-White House website, the website where he's saying, rah, 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 this is what I'm going to do. It doesn't really line up exactly with that. Some of the things are the same, some of the things very different. We're going to go through basically the statement that he produced word for word, and then we're going to go through basically the article that was written about what's actually in this proposal for his 2024 presidential budget. So as a result of that, this is the big video. Let's get right to it. Joe Biden wrote a guest essay. Let me go through the basics of it real quick, and then we'll go from there. Joe Biden stated, President Biden stated in it, millions of Americans work their whole lives paying into Medicare with every working day, starting with their first jobs, even as teenagers. Again, he tends to have really great writers when it comes to, guest essays, speeches that are in print, things like that. Medicare is more than a government program. It's the rock solid guarantee that Americans have counted on to be there for them when they retire. Again, great phrasing. He does a good job with that. Whoever he has writing his, quick essays, his write-ups, things like that, they always do a great job. For decades, I've listened to my Republican friends claim that the only way to be serious about preserving Medicare is to cut benefits, including by making it a voucher program worth less and less every year. Some have threatened our economy unless I agree to benefit cuts. Okay, so what he's doing here is we're right into basically paragraph 2, and President Biden is full on attacking the Republicans, right? First paragraph sets the intro, second paragraph, go after the Republicans. This is a smart political thing for him because the most important group that he's going to have for the 2024 to 2025 presidential election, voting cycle, because remember, you vote in 2024, 2025, the next president comes in, is to essentially go after the opponent on what people are most likely to fear, which is the loss of their retirement benefits, the loss of their disability benefits, the loss of their Medicare. You lose Medicare, you can't get your medication, you can't get to see your regular doctor, you can't get your imaging, you can't get your life-saving surgeries, okay? So politically, this is a mastermind move. This is a chess game well played. Next paragraph, paragraph 3. Only in Washington can people claim that they are saving something by destroying it. Now, look, both sides, the Republicans say that the Democrats are trying to go ahead and destroy this. And the Democrats say about the Republicans that the Republicans are trying to destroy this. Next sentence. The budget I'm releasing this week will make the Medicare trust fund solvent beyond 2050 without cutting a penny in benefits. In fact, we can get better value, making sure Americans receive better care for the money they pay into Medicare. Now, here's the funny thing. And remember, you don't listen to my videos to just get what's in the article. You listen to my videos because I come across, albeit a little bit more snarky than usual right now, with the counterpoint. The counterpoint to this is that Medicare is slightly funded by your FICA taxes, but every year people receiving Medicare pay a portion each month towards it. So out of all the trust funds in Social Security land, right, your retirement, your disability trust funds, things like that, the trust fund that needs the most help is the retirement trust fund. The trust fund that needs the least help is the Medicare trust fund. Now, of course, there's some people in Medicare, I can't afford my Medicare benefits. What am I going to do without my insurance? I get it. But out of all the trust funds under the Social Security Administration's umbrella, the one that he should be focusing on the most is the retirement trust fund, which we're going to learn about ain't even part of this. All right, let's keep going here. The two biggest health reform bills since the creation of Medicare, both of which will save Medicare hundreds of billions over the decades to come, were signed by President Barack Obama and me. Of course, a little fanciful. We're throwing it in. We're doing our, advertisements here. They all do it. Trump did it. They all do it. The Affordable Care Act embraced smart reforms to make our healthcare system more efficient while improving Medicare coverage for seniors. The Inflation Reduction Act ended the absurd ban on Medicare negotiation, lowered drug prices, required drug companies to pay rebates to Medicare if they increase prices faster than inflation, and capped seniors' total prescription drug costs, saving seniors up to thousands of dollars a year. These negotiations, combined with the law's rebates for excessive price hikes, will reduce the deficit by $159 billion. Look, 159 billion is a lot of money, but against 31 trillion, it's not a lot of money. But I like it. He's chiseling and chiseling. However, we don't know if this is actually going to work in the sense of what he's saying at 159 billion. The government is famous for saying, we're going to do this, and then we're going to save this much as a result of it. You know, it's like when they build a tunnel in Boston. We're going to do this. That's only going to cost us this. And then it ends up costing like 3 to 4 times as much as I thought it would cost. Way over budget, problems up the kazoo. You got it. All right. We have seen a significant slowdown in the growth of healthcare spending since the Affordable Care Act was passed. In the decade after the ACA, Medicare actually spent about $1 trillion less than the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office projected before the ACA reforms were in place. In 2009, before the ACA, the Medicare trustees projected that Medicare's trust fund would be exhausted in 2017. Their latest projection is 2028, but we should do better than that and extend Medicare solvency beyond 2050. What they're not telling you in this is that Medicare's trust fund is different than the other trust funds. Medicare's trust fund is the easiest and cheapest to fix out of the other trust funds. So if you're sitting there and you're like, okay, well, we got to save Medicare, but then what about the retired and what about the disabled getting their checks every month? You would start to be like, well, they got to get their checks because then they could just buy some other type of insurance. If they can't get their checks and the amount of their checks is reduced, then they can't buy insurance. And you'd be right, because then you would realize that the Medicare trust fund requires a person receiving Medicare to pay on a monthly basis for Medicare. That's not how retirement works. That's not how disability benefits work. Retirement benefits, you pay, as you work. You pay as you go as you work. Same thing with disability trust fund. You pay as you work into it. Once you're found disabled, you don't pay, right, an amount per month to go ahead and receive your disability check. You don't pay once you're retired an amount per month just to retain your retirement check. I mean, technically you do with those because of the cost of living adjustment. They always give you less than what it costs to actually live in America. So technically you are paying a penalty to receive these benefits, but it doesn't count like the Medicare thing does. The Medicare situation has people always paying in. So here's what they're not telling you with this. Here's the problem. When you look at the graph, right, of how, Medicare works, Medicare is always about to run out of money as a trust fund. It's always about to run out of money. It is. It's always about to run out of money because it's not set to take a large percent of the FICA taxes. It's a very, very tiny, minuscule percent of your FICA taxes that you pay. So my point is here, if they're taking a minuscule amount and paying it towards Medicare, then how do they go ahead and really fund this thing? Well, they fund it because you pay that monthly amount to keep your Medicare, right? Once you need it, you opt into it, you pay that amount per month, which means that they don't know how much they're going to have in that trust fund each year when you're doing that pay-in aspect of it. And you're paying in money and, you're now opting into it, you're paying in money. So it's always getting saved because there's more money coming into it. All of a sudden, there's these people. They've opted into it. They're paying their monthly amount. So it's always like this. It's always about to dip, but then it gets saved because people are paying into it. They opt into it, they pay their monthly. Boop, it's about to dip, and people are paying into it. That's not like retirement or disability benefits. Those trust funds, they start to go down. They just keep going because there's not enough people paying in. And there's too many people taking. Because like we said, nobody's paying in an extra amount once they opt into it. You opt into retirement, you're not paying a monthly amount to it. You opt into disability benefits, you're not paying a monthly amount to it. At that point, you are just receiving. All right, you guys get it. So first, I'm just going to go back to the article. Let's expand on that progress. My budget will build on drug price reforms by strengthening Medicare's newly established negotiation power, which is good. It's not very powerful. It's going to take years to roll it out. They could have been significantly more aggressive. But as a weak argument of negotiating power over the prices of medications and things like that, yes, they've created a platform. It's a crap platform. It's like the door from the Titanic that couldn't fit two people apparently, and then one of them had to die. But that's what they did, right? None of these people negotiated well when it comes to that. Okay. Medicare's newly established negotiation power, allowing Medicare to negotiate prices for more drugs and bringing drugs into negotiation sooner after they launch. Okay, that's another $200 billion in deficit reduction. Maybe. We will then take those savings and put them directly into the Medicare Trust Fund. Good, if they'll actually be that much. We will then and then lowering drug prices while extending Medicare solvency sure makes a lot more sense than cutting benefits. That was a jab at the Republicans. And it's a correct jab. It's not an incorrect jab. It's a correct jab because the bottom line is cutting benefits is not a viable option. People are entitled to certain things contractually through the Constitution and the amendments thereafter. And as a part of that, to cut retirement, to cut disability, to cut Medicare is a sin. It is a political sin. That's why they're all afraid to do it, because you paid into it. Medicare, you keep paying into it once you opt into it. All right. Next one. So let's ask the wealthiest to pay just a little bit more of their fair share. Now remember, governments throughout history have used this fair share idea when realistically things in the government are not going so well. The whole thing gets, okay, which group can be hated on the most, right? And they look to the wealthy. They look to people that it's, okay to be prejudiced against. And that's what this is. President Biden has decided to be prejudiced against the wealthy. It's a morally acceptable thing in America to do. So we're going to tax them more and take more of what they have. It's just the way it works in America. Not saying it's good, not saying it's bad. It's just another form of prejudice. Okay. All right. Second, let's ask the wealthiest to pay just a little bit more of their fair share to strengthen Medicare for everyone over the long term. My budget proposes to increase the Medicare tax rate on earned and unearned income above $400,000. Once again, that's the important part. Second, let's ask the wealthiest to pay just a little bit more of their fair share to strengthen Medicare for everybody over the long term. My budget proposal to increase the Medicare tax rate on earned and unearned income above $400,000 to 5% from 3.8%. All right. So just to clarify, he's removing a cap that didn't exist before. He's removing a cap. Well, yeah, that's correct. He's removing the cap that didn't exist before. He's removing the cap that existed, and he's boosting basically what the total amount percentage will be on these individuals. So it's a big chunk tax on essentially the wealthy when they're earning money above $400,000. Okay. As I proposed in the past, my budget will also ensure that the tax that supports Medicare can't be avoided altogether. This modest increase in Medicare contributions from those with the highest incomes will help keep the Medicare program strong for decades to come. My budget will make sure the money goes directly into the Medicare Trust Fund, protecting taxpayers' investments in the future of the program. When Medicare was passed, the wealthiest 1% of Americans didn't have more than 5 times the wealth of the bottom 50% combined, and it only makes sense that some adjustments be made to reflect the reality today. Okay? So, all right, now let me just summarize that real quick. In America, the way wealth works is that when some individuals become so wealthy that, their wealth is defined by the companies they own and the value of the stock on that day, those individuals, always with their crew of people to work the money, end up growing their wealth. Now, their wealth continues to grow and grow and grow, which sucks up a lot of the available dollars that could potentially be in the hands of people spending to buy products. The thing is, when people spend money to buy products, it reduces the value of the American dollar. When rich people make more money and put it aside, it doesn't usually have the same effect of reducing the American dollar's worth. So what's happening is they have to balance how much they give to the poor people and how much they allow the rich people to make. That's the whole game here. If you're wondering, what's the complex system behind all of this? That's the game. If we give too much money to the poor people, then the American, the dollar will then go ahead and lose value against other currencies internationally. If you give it to rich people and they put it away, they're not mass buying products, which means that those products won't, essentially there will be a high demand, right, when somebody mass buys them. But if somebody's not mass buying them, there will be a low demand and the products will remain cheaper. That's how it works. That's the system. Like, that's the cutesy version of economics. Okay. What he's trying to do here is, like he said, take away the fair share of them just constantly gaining more money and redistributing it back to, wealth redistribution to essentially the American people. It's not an entirely, it's a fair thing at this point. We have ultra billionaires and we have ultra millionaires. And the reality is this: we have people receiving less benefits than they should be. And unfortunately, the ratio that I talk about, and people just ignore it, and I don't know why people do, but the ratio of 2.8 workers to one receiving benefits, like one claimant receiving benefits, is the big problem, because we don't have enough people working. And frankly, that comes down to the following bullet points. Number one, keeping people healthy. Number two, keeping people educated. Number three, basically showing people skills beyond just what college will teach them. The sad thing is that a lot of people think that they just have to have one type of career path in their life. I was one of those idiots. I am one of those idiots. And I've had to reconfigure my entire way of looking at life as a result of that. And I'll tell you this: the more industries I learn, the more opportunities to make money I have. It sounds stupidly simple, but it took me until I was like 33, 34 to figure that one out. And the funny thing is too, when I was studying for, I think it was the LSAT, to go take the entrance exam for law school. Wow, Paul L. Thank you. I really appreciate it. You donated $19.99. That's super amazing. I really appreciate it. That's incredible. Because financially, I'm just with this house thing. There were so many things I didn't realize, and I thought I did my research, but it's just like, no matter how much you learn about something new, you just never, without the experience of doing it, you don't have the wisdom and knowledge to actually know what's going to happen. And every time we would dig deeper on this house, we'd find like this damage or this problem or what is that, But thank you, good sir. I really appreciate it. And this is a probably good point for me to say something else. We as an American group tend to look down on individuals, unlike Germany, unlike Russia, things like that, unlike Switzerland, who basically have blue collar oriented jobs. There is nothing wrong with somebody having hand skills. What do I mean by that? Somebody who can use a blade to shape something, somebody who can use knowledge of electricity and how it flows, and then using your hands to wire things appropriately. There's one of the sad things about it is that a lot of people look down on a person doing, trash removal, right? Like, this is a job. And I've said this many times before. I've said this a million times before. If I ever lost my job or couldn't do my job and all that was like a job at McDonald's, I would do it and I'd be proud to do it. It's hard. It's a real tough job. I've had the Starbucks job. I've had the computer check job. I've had the music library job. I've had the stalker person, where you stock items at basically a music store. I've had that job. I've had farm hand job where I've had to go ahead and basically, work with animals and stuff like that. I've had a lot of jobs. But point is, when people tell me, well, I'm not going to do that job, well, I don't want to do that job, blah, 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 blah. To me, it's like a little knife, because, and I get a lot of people who call me for disability benefits. And I'm like, well, why would I do that job? I've done this job. I'm educated to do this job. The SSA doesn't care about that. When you're applying for disability benefits, they expect you to work any job that's available. Pride or no pride, ego or no ego, they expect you to work a job. Ironically, and if the only jobs available are in Hawaii and Alaska, they expect you to move to that job. But point is, with this whole thing, Biden isn't wrong about this kind of wealth redistribution. And I know people are going to, what do you mean? How could you say, oh my God, blah, 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 blah. People who have over $400,000 in income coming in, and I get it. Some of them have really big bills. They got to pay for their big house. They got debts. They got the investment. I get it. I totally get it. But people that are making that and consistently making over that, are you okay with society working better and them paying a little bit more? I mean, you guys let me know. Do you think, because, look, this whole idea of like income redistribution has been going on for a very long time. Our tax system is income redistribution. The super rich paying the most taxes, not just in the sense of like the amount of money, but also in the percentage that they pay on the money that they bring in. So it's like a higher percent and the massive money that they pay in. It's a stepped system. Same thing with our Social Security benefits for disability benefits. It's for the most part an algorithm that is a stepped system. So this whole income redistribution thing, if you're like, there's no way we should allow that, it's been going on since before you were born. It exists in this country. It's existed for a long time. So then I guess the question to you is, do you think American people should have the honor of being able to have benefits? I mean, look, I'm one of those crazy people who thinks that every time we have to reduce benefits, the United States government failed us through its congressional leaders. I mean, there's no reason why we'd have to raise retirement from 67 up to 70 when it should be moving back down to 65 through clear and proper investments. All right. Let's continue reading. Let's ask them to pay their fair share so that the millions of workers who helped them build that wealth can retire with dignity in the Medicare they paid into. Republican plans that protect billionaires from a penny more in taxes, but won't protect a retired firefighter's hard-earned Medicare benefits, are just detached from the reality that hardworking families live with every day. So he's hammering hard on Republicans, and I think that he's doing a pretty good job. The one thing that I would promote with this is that Republicans tend to, and I'm not going to try and explain their way because I don't fully understand Democrats and I don't fully understand Republicans at this point because I feel like they're both swimming and trying to figure out what's their actual island of ideas. But Republicans tend to be very anti-new taxes. And they don't want to have new taxes. So if you don't have new taxes, you either have to find a way to pay for it or you have to cut benefits. Democrats, super cool with new taxes. That's like their bread and butter. Problem? Raise taxes. That's how they do it. This is the Democrat way. So you either want to not pay more taxes or you want to pay more taxes. Now, with the retired, most of the people who are on Medicare, right? That's a fact. Okay. What do you think retired people are going to vote for? Do you think they're going to vote for those who are working right now to not get taxed more? No, of course not. Of course not. Those in their 50s who are about to retire, those who are in their 60s who are really close to retiring, those who are currently retired, who are tapping into Medicare. Do you think that they're going to give a damn about the working population and not taxing them more? Especially if it's over $400,000 that they're doing the extra taxes at. They're not going to give a damn. They're going to be full-fledged all for it. Okay. Back to the article. Add all that up, and my budget will extend the Medicare trust fund for more than another generation, an additional 25 years or more of solvency beyond 2050. These are common sense changes that I'm confident an overwhelming majority of Americans support. It's smart. It's a smart chess move on behalf of Biden. It's smart. Now, here he's going to really dig deep. Here he's getting out the shovel to try and bury the Republicans, right? MAGA Republicans have a different view. They want to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act. That means they want to take away the power we just gave to Medicare to negotiate for lower prescription drug prices. I feel a little bit, look, Republicans tend to be better negotiators when it comes to getting what they want out of a deal. Democrats tend to be big picture, future thinking individuals. Okay. So if you're looking for like where things are going in the long run, that's usually Democrats. If you're looking for who can make a good deal right now, it's usually Republicans. So if they were to repeal it, my feeling is they would still go after prescription drugs. And there's another thing going on in the prescription drug land, which is essentially multi-billionaires are now investing into it to upset the industry by finding a way to sell drugs cheaper, which basically makes it a competitive, you know, and it's not small businesses competing, it's massively huge, gigantic drug industries competing, which only billionaires can get into that marketplace. And they're doing that and they're upsetting it, which is something that changes it. Like the whole like electric car thing. You know how like some people hate Elon Musk about like, oh, you're an evil person, blah, 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 blah. Let me explain something. Electric cars on mass production levels that are ramped up and capable of being sold, he did that. You could say this little car company did that. You could say this design and this technology existed for 100 years. You could say all of that, but you'd be lying. You'd be lying strongly to yourself and those you're trying to go ahead and commit your ideas to. He's the guy. He's the guy who, at the end of the day, and there were other people that started it with him, and he kind of jumped on. Actually, there's a whole background story with that situation with Tesla and how that worked out. But the point is, just to summarize where it ended up, right? Because that's how these things are. Who was working that company? Who made that company what it is? Who pushed it to the next level? All the people that worked at Tesla, whether they support Elon or not, whether they vote Democrat or Republican, they did that. Their innovation, their genius, they did that. Same thing with SpaceX. Blue Origin is still trying to paddle to catch up. NASA is now trying to paddle to catch up. That's what happened. Competing industries, billionaires getting into that marketplace, which is weird because you would think it would have happened a lot faster in America. But what happened in America was that they basically cut off industries, made the barriers to entry too high, and millionaires could not create those industries. You literally needed billionaires to be able to do that. So with that said, I think the Republicans could negotiate a better deal when it comes to the power of reducing the cost of drugs. But at the same time, we may not need the Republicans. We could just continue with the Democrat plan because there's multi-billionaires creating industry flipping changes to prescription drugs. Some of you guys have seen him, you know, the guy from Shark Tank, all that stuff. It's impressive stuff that they're doing. And they're taking control away from one of the strongest industries that really screwed Americans over, which is life-changing, life-saving drugs that were far too expensive for far too long. Nobody will disagree with that. Even the drug companies are going to sit back and say, well, yeah, maybe we could have made them cheaper. Maybe we could have helped out more Americans. But yeah, we didn't. We did it for the money. That's what they did. They mass charged the sick, which is, when you think about it, so immorally terrible that it makes you sick. If the MAGA Republicans, going back to the article, get their way. Wow, Shirley, thank you. The $2.99 donation. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Excellent. So I want to point out something else here. Again, thank you, Shirley. That's amazing. So furry plants and coins. Elon is in the process of building a flying car. So if you go back to Ford and his early flying cars, one of the things that kept the flying car from being like a thing that we all use, like a quick little runway, you know, for every community, was that he lost this young pilot that he was very good friends with. And it was a very, very sad situation. That's why we don't fly in cars today. That's the reason. He will make something that we will use. Except this time, instead of us actually flying the thing, most of it using the tech, obviously, from SpaceX, will be automated air maneuvers, right? You're not going to have to go ahead and do all this and that. If there's computer failure, another computer will come on. They'll have all that stuff. What I'm really excited about, just as a side note from this stuff, is that the future for the disabled and the retired isn't just going to be sitting in a house somewhere. It's going to be going places. Maybe not space yet. I know. But it's going to be going to see all kinds of places. Flying to countries, flying to amazing, just nature-oriented places. Or maybe not nature, maybe man-made stuff, woman-made stuff. But they're going to be much more mobile. Energy, transportation, getting there faster, they're all going to be available in the future. And that to me is so important because I think one of the big problems I see with those who retire There's actually somebody I know who's really inspired me to look beyond just the where I live, where I'm stuck. This is where I'm at. Um, is to not be afraid to take a step into literally a new zone. You know, because we all have that. We're all like, I'm just going to stay right here because I'm comfortable here and this feels good. That's not good. You have so many years on this earth. You sit in one spot for all those years. You failed you. You failed you. If the MAGA Republicans get their way, seniors will pay higher out-of-pocket costs on prescription drugs and insulin. The deficit will be bigger and Medicare will be weaker. The only winner under their plan will be Big Pharma. That's not how we extend Medicare's life for another generation or grow the economy. Good point. Good point from Biden. Again, he didn't write this. Somebody else did. But they're good points. And this needed to be done. Sure, did they negotiate a good plan? No, it was a crap plan. But it was in the right direction. And we need a little bit more right direction when it comes to unbelievable cost of pharmaceutical drugs. This week, I'll show Americans my full budget vision to invest in America, lower costs, grow the economy, and not raise taxes on anyone making under $400,000. I urge my Republican friends in Congress to do the same and show the American people what they value. That was what he wrote. Now, we're going to go to the categories. There was this beautiful article written by Katie Labosco and Tammy Lubbe from CNN. What's in the Biden budget? So we're going to go through the categories real quick so you have an understanding, and then I'm going to tell you what's not in it, which pissed me off. Okay, I'll just read through the basics of the article. Make no mistake, the proposed budget has no chance of making it through the Republican-controlled House. I'm glad that they opened with that because people just need to know right up front. Portions of this will, but this budget right now, no way it'll survive. Okay. But Biden's plan will frame upcoming political battles on Capitol Hill, where the GOP has yet to unveil its own spending plan. I need to explain something before we go full into this, which is that the Biden plan and the Republican plan have to focus on Social Security benefits. And if they don't focus on Social Security benefits, then they're missing the greatest opportunity they have to secure the future presidential election. Biden's budget comes out after the U.S. hit the debt ceiling, a cap set by Congress earlier this year. The Treasury Department is now taking extraordinary measures. They're robbing one agency to pay another agency to allow the government to keep paying its bills. Oh, and by the way, they're literally taking retirement benefit funds that federal employees have paid in to fund these other agencies. Yeah. And people always say like Social Security funds will always be safe. Not when the money's real dry. They'll pass something real quick when that happens. All right. But the country could start to default on its obligations over the summer if Congress doesn't address the debt ceiling before then. Republicans are calling for some spending cuts in exchange for voting to raise the cap, while the White House does not want to negotiate on resolving the debt limit drama. It's political shenanigans. We shouldn't be too off in the land of yada yada with it. Many of the provisions in the budget rehash the president's earlier proposals to expand the social safety net and to pay for it by raising taxes on the wealthy and corporations. He wants to restore the expanded child tax credit and make permanent enhanced Obamacare subsidies, both enacted in the American Rescue Plan in 2021. And he wants to provide universal free preschool, which is really good. Like, guys, I know some of you are like, whatever, that's stupid. It's not. Preschool is important. Kindergarten, important. Preschool, super important. Remember, a smarter America, that's a good thing. We need more people with more education, more knowledge, more analytical skills. Analytical skills, especially among Americans, very low, very low. Okay, Biden's spending plan also calls for shoring up Medicare and capping the price of insulin for all Americans. The administration says these proposed policies will result in nearly $3 trillion reduction in the deficits, the difference between what the government spends and its revenue over the next decade. Then they specifically go into what's in his spending proposal. Okay. Here's what's in Biden's budget proposal. Place a minimum tax on billionaires. The budget includes a 25% minimum tax on all the income of the wealthiest 0.01% of Americans, including their appreciated assets. It would hit those with a net worth of more than $100 million. Prior efforts to add this type of tax were not successful. I'm going to tell you guys right now, there's no way that this will pass. There's no way. The billionaires and the 100 million plus heirs are the people who fund presidential elections, senator elections, House rep elections. There's no way that this will pass. So just cross that puppy off. Next one. Increase the corporate tax rate. Biden wants to increase the corporate tax rate to 28%, up from the 21% rate set by the GOP tax cut package in 2017. The budget would also reduce incentives for multinational businesses to book profits in low tax jurisdictions, they mean other countries like, Ireland, and raise the tax rate on their foreign earnings to 21% from 10.5%. And it would hike the stock buybacks tax enacted last year to 4% from 1%. I think that the hikes are pretty strong there, but I don't think that's in the wrong direction. Tax havens, Luxembourg, Ireland, Virgin Islands, stuff like that. These places have sheltered the largest companies who move their headquarters there and then basically don't get taxed as much in America for selling products in America. And that to me is dumb. If you're doing business in America, you should be taxed at the business rate that America has set for the American companies. Okay? It's just the way it should work. Right? If you want to have a no prejudice system when it comes to business tax, it's just the way it works. Sure, there should be special deductions for transportation of items, getting them into the country, meeting the regulatory codes, whatever. Fine. Business expenses, write-offs, got it. But you do business in America, you should get taxed at the business rate that American businesses get taxed at. How do we not have that? Well, that would be called all of your presidents up to the current date. All right. So that one may pass. They may have to fiddle with the numbers a little bit. Next one. Repealing Trump's tax cuts for the wealthy. Biden's budget would scrap some tax cuts for certain individuals that were put in place by the Republican 2017 tax law. Biden's plan would raise the top tax rate to 39.6% from 37%. This would impact single filers making more than $400,000 a year and married couples making more than $450,000 per year, according to the administration. If you're making that much per year, but then the other side of me goes, where does it end? I don't think 400,000 is a fair starting point. I don't think it's a fair starting point. I think we should make it like 500,000. I think we should make it a little higher than that. I really do think we should make it a little higher than that. And think about this, 400,000 for a single person. And then they set the other one as 450,000 for a couple. The hell is that shit? A married couple? That should be 800,000. Like, where do they, you know what I mean? Like, oh, let's punish the married people again. Let's just screw them over because, gosh, you get married. Ha ha. We're going to get you. You think it's a tax haven? No. They're going to get you. So, again, why do we keep hurting married people? I just, we only rely on them to, basically produce children that work jobs and, hey, but forget that. We're going to put their cap at 450 starting point. Okay. It also proposes taxing capital gains at the same rate as wage income. Now that's the biggie. They're adding a new group of income to what normally gets taxed, which is going to add a lot of taxes. Okay. Once again, it also proposes taxing capital gains, which are like, some investment-y kind of stuff, at the same rate as wage income for those earning more than 1 million, as well as closing the carried interest loophole that allows investment managers to treat much of their compensation as capital gains, thus lowering their tax rate. Yeah, I get that. They those guys have been, having a good time for a long time. Like, I'm in an industry that hardly makes any money, which is the disability field and representing those who are disabled to get them on the benefit train. But I get it. Those in Wall Streety kind of jobs, offsetting and recategorizing basically their gains so that they don't get hit with the higher tax, they shouldn't be allowed to do that. Come on. The Biden administration has previously had trouble getting support for these provisions from some Democrats. Once again, the Biden administration has previously had trouble getting support for these provisions from some Democrats. Taxing rich people is tricky business to politicians. You're basically slapping the animal that feeds you. It's never good to slap the animal that feeds you. You definitely don't bite the animal that feeds you. But slapping the animal that feeds you, that's a very bad thing. Okay. Restore the enhanced child tax credit. That stuff always tends to pass through some degree, whether they have to lower the numbers of the percentages or whatever. But they always tend to give tax bennies for those who have kids. The budget calls for reviving the expanded child tax credit, which is interesting too, because America is kind of breeding. Don't get married. Well, no, it's not kind of breeding. It is definitively breeding a don't get married, but have a baby mama, have a baby daddy, relationship. Restore the enhanced child tax credit. The budget calls for reviving the expanded child tax credit, which was in place for 2021. It would beef up the credit to $3,600 per child for those under age 6 and $3,000 for older children. It would permanently make the credit fully refundable, so more low-income families would qualify. But guys, I'm not against single moms, single dads, or even low-income families having some tax money coming back to them. I'm just not against that. I understand it could be a runaway thing. I get it. I understand that basically we're having a problem with young kids coming from low-income families not getting the education that they need, and there's a lot of crime as a percentage relating to that situation. I get it, but at the same time, it's all fixable stuff. We can get every kid educated. We can get every kid having good food. It's all fixable stuff. Improve Medicare's finances. So remember, now we're going to Social Security land with this thing. Improve Medicare's finances. Biden wants to shore up Medicare's hospital insurance trust fund, known as Part A, by raising taxes on those earning more than $400,000 a year, and by allowing Medicare to negotiate prices for even more drugs. Medicare, which covers more than 65 million senior citizens and people with disabilities, will only be able to fully pay scheduled benefits until 2028. But that number is not calculated realistically, considering that people pay in every month. I mean, you could go by the math of it, but I still believe very firmly that the retirement trust fund is in far more danger than the Medicare trust fund. According to the most recent forecast by its trustees, that's Stephen Goss, the chief actuary on behalf of the SSA, Biden's proposal would extend Medicare solvency by 25 years or more, according to the White House. The plan would increase the net investment income tax rate on earned and unearned income. Notice that. It was earned income and unearned income. They're adding that category there. Above $400,000 to 5%, up from 3.8%. Also, it would be levied on the owners of certain pass-through firms who include business income on their personal tax returns and aren't currently subject to the tax. In addition, the measure would dedicate the revenue from the tax, which was created by the Affordable Care Act, to Medicare's hospital insurance trust fund. So what I like about this is that what we normally see from Democrats and Republicans is that they're going to tax things and then take the money and spend it as they need it, right? It's discretionary, but it's open, right? It's discretionary and it's open. In this case, he's saying the money that comes from that tax straight into the Medicare trust fund, which I like to hear. Now, the trust fund works off of, very low yield monetary system, which doesn't make enough for what's paid in. That's another problem. But, I like the idea that the money is safe. The grubby little fingers of the politicians aren't going to immediately be able to touch it. Also, the proposal would build on the Inflation Reduction Act, which congressional Democrats passed last summer by allowing Medicare to negotiate the prices of more drugs and bring drugs into negotiation sooner after they launch. The ironic thing is that for those good parts of that drug negotiation program, they don't even come into play until like 3-4 years from now. So in order for this whole negotiation of prices for more drugs to happen, President Biden would have to basically get elected to be president again. If the Republicans won, they would repeal this whole thing and negotiate something else. Just think about the timelines here, guys. It takes like 3 to 4 years for the real negotiations of these prices of drugs to take place under this plan, this Inflation Reduction Act. So if you go forward 3 to 4 years, if President Biden doesn't win, the best part of this whole Inflation Reduction Act, when it comes to negotiating drug prices, it's just going to get killed off. Republicans will take over. They'll pull back that act, and they'll repeal it, and that'll be it. They'll have to put something else in there. Now, who wins in that? Well, probably the drug companies. And it would extend the law's requirement that drug companies pay rebates to Medicare if they increase prices faster than inflation to commercial health insurance. Okay. We're almost through. Here we go. $35 insulin for all Americans. The budget also calls for capping the price of insulin at $35 a month for everyone. The Inflation Reduction Act limited the price of each insulin prescription to $35 a month for Medicare beneficiaries as of this year. Cool. Democrats had hoped to extend the provision to those with private insurance as part of last year's package, but congressional Republicans blocked the measure. This is true. This was not a best hour for Republicans kind of situation. But they had some decent arguments, but the video is not about that. Reduce prescription drug costs for seniors. The budget proposes to limit Medicare beneficiaries' out-of-pocket costs for generic drugs used for certain chronic conditions to no more than $2. Seniors' cost would also drop if Medicare expanded its drug price negotiations. Cool. Make enhanced Obamacare subsidies permanent. Biden wants to continue the more generous Affordable Care Act subsidies, which are set to expire after 2025. The temporary enhancement has beefed up the premium subsidy and allowed more middle-class folks to qualify. The proposal would also provide Medicaid-like coverage to those in states that have not expanded the public health insurance program for low-income Americans. Let's just be real here. We are very quickly moving forward into a Medicaid for all scenario. And the next step after Medicaid for all scenario is Medicare for all scenario. That's where we're going with this thing, right? If you're sitting back going like, well, I don't like that I have to pay for blah, 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 blah. Fine, cool, I get it. But we're just moving in the direction of Medicaid for all of those who aren't covered for Medicare. Now, there are some problems with this. Obviously, allowing the United States government to be in control of your health care to that level, never a good thing. Never a good thing because of potential abuse, of potential not covering enough, inefficiencies with processing. But that's where we're going with this. We're going to have an everybody's on Medicaid who's not on Medicare system. And then basically people go into, essentially Medicare when they can opt into the payment system. That's where we're going with this stuff. Increase food security. The budget would provide more than $15 billion to allow more states and schools to provide free school meals to an additional 9 million children. Never a bad thing. Putting money into the Americans. Feeding Americans, never a bad thing. Reduce maternal mortality. Biden would provide $471 million to reduce maternal mortality rates and expand maternal health initiatives in rural communities. It would also require all states to provide continuous Medicaid postpartum coverage for 12 months instead of 60 days. Some people feel that this is too generous. I would like to go ahead and provide you with an alternative thought. If women are to live and create life that they get to turn into soldiers that make money for America, that America gets to borrow debt against, then we have to make sure that the person who's being born and the person who's going to be taking care of that person are healthy. Healthy Americans, as a theme, is hard to argue against. You can always argue that you don't want to have to pay this. I get it. But healthy Americans mean more workers. We need more workers. All right. Lower Medicaid spending. The budget will require private insurance companies that provide Medicaid coverage to pay back some money when they charge the program far more than they actually spend on patient care. And it would give the Department of Health and Human Services the authority to negotiate additional supplemental Medicaid drug rebates on behalf of states. Okay, that's fair. Make college more affordable. I remember when I went through college, my student loans hit around $500,000, and they're right around $300,000 now after owning a law firm for 10 years. Actually, September 27th will be 10 years, and then 28th will be the completion of 10 years. And then working a bunch of jobs throughout my college, master's, Juris Doctorate, and post-doctorate education. So to be $300,000 in debt with student loans at this point in my life, you kind of have to sit back and say, what did I do wrong when I was making choices about my future? So the spending plan calls for a $500 increase to the maximum Pell Grant, which is awarded to roughly 7 million college students from the lowest income families annually. Currently, the maximum Pell Grant is $7,395 in the 2023 to 2024 school year. Congress has increased the maximum amount by $900 over the past 2 years, but the grant historically covered a larger share of the cost of college than it does now. Biden's budget would also provide $500 million for new grant programs to help make 2 years of community college free. Let's be realistic here, guys. We need a system of free college or pay to play high-end school. You want to go to Yale, you want to go to Harvard, you want to go to Cornell, right? You want to go to these places, you pay big money. Even though those schools already make enough money to pay for literally their continuous production. Like if they didn't receive any student income, they'd be fine. With that said, I do not think college should cost anything to those who are basically trying to get a free college education. I just don't. Once again, the theory that higher educated individuals achieve more things for America by creating innovative products that push forward the existence of a better work environment, the language of business. I mean, how do we go wrong with that? All right. Now, let's see. Biden's budget would also provide $500 million for a new grant program, help to make 2 years of community college free, and it asked Congress for a $620 million increase in funding for the Office of Federal Student Aid, which processes financial aid forms and helps service student loans. The office did not receive a funding increase this year, despite likely having to support borrowers with restarting payment this summer after a 3-year pause. Okay. Let's be realistic here. We need free college. Even though college is a massive cash cow machine, we need free college so that people can get an education. We also need free blue-collar related training programs so that people have a better shot at learning more skills. All right, next one. Universal preschool and affordable childcare. The budget would provide funding for a new federal state partnership program that would provide universal free preschool. The spending plan would also increase funding for existing federal early care and education programs. All right. So why do I support that? Well, a lot of you guys don't realize that I was born when I was, my birthday is right on one of those dates where you could either go forward a year or back a year. It's all based off of the capacity of developmental functions within, your brain, the normative standard of intelligence as you age up. I did not have a properly, I wouldn't say, I don't think that's fair. I did not have a brain that was ahead of the curve with forming, okay, when it comes to intellectual capacity. My brain formed behind the curve, and then it went way beyond the curve. That's just how my genetics are. I was a shorter person. I was genetically the whole thing. Some people are 6'5", in 5th grade, right? Some people just genetically, they take longer to go ahead and become who they're supposed to become. As a result of that, I can kind of say to you, and I think this is important, that one of the things that was incredibly important was essentially preschool and kindergarten. And yes, I think it was around 1st grade or 2nd grade. I can't remember. Maybe it was kindergarten. I was held back a grade. Just so you know. So if you're sitting there like, oh, I was held back a grade, I'm never going to be anybody. Some people develop slower. It's just the way it is. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just the way it is. Okay. I think this is excellent to have the universal preschool. Next one, provide paid family and medical leave. Biden's budget would establish a national paid family and medical leave program. It would provide 12 weeks of leave for eligible employees to take time off to care for and bond with a new child, care for a seriously ill loved one, heal from their own serious illness, address circumstances arising from a loved one's military deployment, or find safety from domestic violence, sexual assault, or stalking, according to the administration. Congress provided for some paid sick leave during the COVID-19 pandemic, but lawmakers let the benefit expire in 2021. Here's my thing with this. He's going to put a good chunk of that on essentially the private market with companies who have to not have that person working. And yes, some of the funding will come from the federal government, but it's not a clear-cut line of the federal government just took care of this. A lot of the burden of this is going to fall on these private companies, and private companies are not going to be competitive or successful with people leaving for that length of time. I get it when it comes to mothers having children. I get it, but 12 weeks of leave, 12 weeks of leave for, circumstances arriving from a loved one's military deployment. Do you need basically 12 weeks, right? So you got 4 months, or you got 4, so you got, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 3 months. Do you need 3 months for that? I get the domestic violence. That can be horrific. That can be, medically very traumatic. I get the sexual assault or the stalking can be very traumatic, but I feel like those should be more on a sliding scale. Who decides what the sliding scale is? That's the problem we run into, because, you can't rely on the government to come up with a system that really does that. Care for a seriously ill loved one. I feel like we should use Biden's original plan, which was to train people and certify them to take care of our loved ones, and then be able to utilize that 12-week option. So there's some issues with that one. Now, here we go. Address climate change. The spending plan calls for billions of dollars, not millions, billions of dollars of investment to help address climate change. For example, money would go towards creating clean energy jobs and cutting energy bills for families, funding climate research, and helping communities become strengthened. Wait, what? And helping communities become strengthened. There's a spelling mistake in there, or there's a writing mistake. And helping communities become strengthened with their infrastructure, with withstanding floods, wildfires, storms, drought brought on by climate change. The investments would also help achieve Biden's goal to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 50 to 52% by 2030. Here's my thing. We do need to address what we're doing to the planet. But what happens is this particular way that the government handles climate change and mass spending, we saw a significant number of green companies funded by the federal government during the Obama era go out of business, some of which were sold to China. This was one of the largest areas of where there was financial abuse, both by private organizations and federal government employees. So when I see the opening sentence, the spending plan calls for billions of dollars of investment to help address climate change, I get worried. I get nervous. Next one, military defense and support for Ukraine. The proposed budget would provide the U.S. Department of Defense with a 3.2% increase in funding over this year's level, with an emphasis on countering China and assisting Ukraine. Now, look, I'm with everybody on this thing. I really am. When it comes to the whole spending money on Ukraine, we're not spending money on Americans. I get it. I fully understand it. But you got to understand something. What this sentence is all about is not Ukraine. What this sentence is all about is countering China. China has more warships. China has more warplanes. China has just a bigger military at this point when it comes to the toys that they could use to be problematic. They wouldn't necessarily win in a battle against us, but they would weaken us so much to the point that we could not fight another enemy like Russia. We wouldn't have it in us to beat them. It would just go into a nuclear back and forth. So the bottom line is that sentence, the whole Ukraine-Russia thing, that's not what's going on here. It's about countering China. It would also deliver more than $6 billion through both the Departments of Defense and State to Ukraine and other European allies to help fight against Russian aggression. This is not their fear. Their fear is China. China has the capacity to win a war. If they did things at the right time, if they sent the right rockets, if they deployed things in an appropriate manner, they could win a war against the United States. They have a massive amount of people. They have a massive amount of technology. They've been mass building war machines, and they're now surpassing us in many categories. We lost our true dominance in 2020. That's when the transition happened. Okay. All right. So that's what's in the budget. Now to talk about what's not in the budget, which is the most important part of this entire video. How many of you heard during that a plan to work with funding the retirement benefits? How many of you heard in that a plan for increasing through some sort of stimulus, right, the retirement benefits for the bottom people who can't get a certain amount, right, raising it all to a certain amount, or increasing everybody by $200 or increasing everybody by $400. You didn't hear any of that. How many of you heard in that write-up information related to essentially disability benefits getting a stimulus or a boost? How many of you heard during that essentially they were going to remove a lot of the restrictions on SSI people when it comes to the the marriage penalty rule, in-kind support maintenance rule? Pick your most favorite evil thing that attaches to these SSI people. I think what surprises me the most is that President Biden had the better write-up between Trump and Biden when it comes to how he was going to try and fix SSI benefits. 2024, the budget, the proposal, that's it. That's where the money's going. That's the purse strings for your run up into specifically that future election cycle for president of the most powerful and rich country quasi on earth. China's catching up in a lot of ways. So my point to you guys is, why is SSI not in it? Why are SSDI disability benefits not in it? Why are retirement benefits not in it? Well, here's why. He had a secret/private meeting with some Democrats, but most specifically Bernie Sanders, where there was the discussion of the cap being raised from essentially, $160,200 for these FICA taxes up to, basically a $400,000, point where people above that are going to be paying more taxes. The idea originally was to use that to bolster and pay for essentially a retirement trust fund that would last for another 75 years. That was the idea. Originally, it was $2,100. Now it's an increase of 75 years. And then even then, there were portions of it that didn't even make it to that point. So you got to be fair with this stuff. With that said, what I'm hearing is taxes, some of which are FICA related and how they're going to be doing it, but emphasis on Medicare. And what I'm not hearing is the money going to essentially retirement trust funds, which if that reduces, just so you know, chaos will ensue if the retirement trust fund runs out in 2033, 2034, and people get between 20 to 23% less of the retirement check each month. Chaos will ensue. So what's surprising to me is that the largest voting group of the 65 million, right, elderly/disabled, the largest voting group is left out of this budget proposal. There are things that they can put into this budget that make a lot of sense. There are things that they can put into it that are like unicorns. They're never going to happen. What I'm not hearing in this budget are even some unicorn proposals that they're going to fix retirement benefits. And that surprises the hell out of me. Because if Trump comes out with a countering document that better budgets and better increases the benefits of the retired and the disabled, they're going to have a winning bell ticket right there. They're going to ring that bell. They're going to win. I don't think President Biden has either released what he's going to do with retirement yet. Although if he has, and we're just stuck with what we've got, he's got a losing ticket here. He has to address retirement. He has to address the proposal for the budget. He has to make the retired feel like they're safe. Screaming at the Republicans and going after Rick Scott, which he's beaten to it's beating a dead horse at this point. But screaming at Republicans is not going to work at the high level stakes of a future presidential election going into 2025. It is not going to work. That tactic is not going to work. If he wants to win, if he wants to play ball, he's going to actually have to make promises and push forward some sort of solution for the retirement trust fund continuing forward and people at least getting the rates that they're getting or having some increase. That's the reality. Anyways, guys, this was a super long show. It was an hour-long show. I will catch you tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to start off with basically defining specifically what FICA taxes you pay. I know I always talk about basically the 6.2, 6.2. I do that because I don't want to take the time to explain the little nuances and the little caveats to it, because there's a lot of little nuances to how you pay taxes with that stuff. And it's not a perfect 6.2, 6.2. But we're going to go through how it actually works, and then you'll have a better understanding as to what money you've paid into the Social Security Administration throughout your lifetime. You'd probably be a little pissed as to how much you're getting out of it, but that's just, it is what it is. So, guys, I'll catch you a little bit later. Please remember to like, subscribe, and leave 5-star reviews. I'm going to put those right into the chat section real quick. I want to thank those individuals who, hung out with me tonight on the show. I want to also thank those individuals who basically made a donation. Money right now is super tight on my end. Like I said, I've been injured. I tore my shoulder. I haven't been in the hospital because I'm paying for health insurance. I'm one of those like people in their 30s that like pays for health insurance but can't afford the treatment. But that is self-imposed because of this house. And I want to make one last final remark. Somebody attacked me in the comments, and because I was feeling extra snarky, I went after them and then I just deleted it. The person said, "How dare you, claim to support the retired and the disabled when you are trying to create investments for yourself going forward in the future?" And my response in summary is very similar. I am 36 years old, coming up on 37. I've owned a law firm for damn near 10 years. We're talking about months here to make 10 years. I have not made lots of money. I would have loved to. It was always a struggle to have employees on board. It was always a struggle to pay for office space. It was always a struggle. It was not real estate. It was not, personal injury law. Mr. LDR, thank you. Thank you for the $9.99 donation. Love the photo. Love the photo. Really love the photo. I love photos when people have love it. It's a tiny photo on my screen, but it looks like you've got like a cat or a dog. I love it. When you guys post photos with like your loved dog or cat, those are my favorite. Those are my absolute favorite. But I want to say to you guys this, and I think this is important for you to hear. Some people felt that me making investments in my future, and just so you know, this investment is insanity. I'm basically buying a house that should have potentially been a bulldoze. And I am doing massive repairs, massive fixes. I'm throwing my money at it so that over the next 25 to 30 years, I can pay it off. And then when I'm in my 60s, that house will be paying a rent check to me. That's the whole plan. Why am I doing this? I am doing this because I have learned from all of you. I have learned from all of you what happens when I don't have some plan or some backup, and I rely on the federal government to take care of me. The federal government can only do so much. When people talk about how strong and amazing and wonderful the federal government is, please remember that they are not a perfect, wow, amazing, magical net that can stop every harm that comes your way. If there's a problem and you need immediate assistance, they're not going to be coming through your door to help you. They're not. The police surely aren't. They're going to take way too long to get to you. So my point is, I have learned from everybody. I've learned from the system. I've spoken with thousands upon thousands upon thousands, over 100,000 people. I've spoken with over 100,000 people about what happened to them. And there is a common theme consistently throughout each one of those. And what it was that they didn't know something that they should have known, but they didn't know it realistically because nobody told them. Or that there wasn't a person who said, "Hey, look, watch out for this." At some point, America and the people who know how to do stuff, at some point, they stop teaching our younger kids what to do. And I don't just mean the little stuff like hey, this is how you change oil in your car. I don't mean that crap. I mean, that's important, sure. But they stopped teaching their wisdom to the next generation. And maybe that's because we get our wisdom from this. I get it. But at the same time, I've listened. I've been listening. I've been listening to people who make fun of me. I've been listening to people who are mean to me. I've been listening to people who are nice to me. I've been listening to all of them. I have been listening to all of them. And what I've realized is that sometimes you have to make a giant leap. And the potential of falling and hitting the ground and hitting your head and dying is very high. Kind of like riding a motorcycle. That's so dangerous, so dangerous. But when the opportunity arises, you have to do it. You have to put your life on the line. You have to put whatever money you have on the line. You just got to do it. You got to do it. Mr. LDR again. Wow. $1.99 donation. Super cool. Super awesome. Super awesome. Let me see if hold on. I just a little side note here. I just wanted to see if I can find a cute photo of the doggies here. Hold on. Let me just and I have a million of them. And my problem is I'm scrolling through them and I'm like, oh, I could pick that one. I could pick that one. These are them while I wrote a brief. Just so adorable. They literally just hang out. They hang out at my feet while I'm writing this brief. And I love the hell out of them. This is my little snuggle muffin, Shadow. Just so cute. Just so adorable. I can't reject his requests for treats. I cannot do it. I've tried. I would give him my credit. If he used credit cards, he would have my credit card. That's all I can say. I cannot reject his desires. He just wants stuff. Can't help it. Anyways, guys, I hope you're well. Paul L, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it for the $4.99 donation. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for making the donations. We have a massive amount of footage from restoring this place. A lot of time-lapse footage. Even we have the person who built out the kitchen. We have her. She's super Italian. I'm just giving you a heads up. She is super Italian. Like she'll probably have a TV show one day, but she is super duper Italian. Really quick thing here.
Hey guys, let's go inside and see exactly what's going on. This house has so many issues, but I'm going to make sure that this kitchen is number one. Stay tuned.
Perfect. So here's the thing, guys. Like she's super Italian, but she does it so well. I've got a ton of video footage. I haven't had a chance to edit any of it. Before I edit any of it, I have to finish the videos for Combat Craig. I have to go back and edit them and stuff like that. But I've been literally, you can see in my eyes, I've been working nonstop over at this house. I will catch you guys a little bit later. You have a wonderful night. Please stay safe. Please protect yourself. And I will basically, tomorrow's going to be about FICA learning. I'm going to teach you how the FICA taxes work. And then basically we're going to be doing an update video on what Biden should have put in his budget proposal. I'm just going to write out what his plan should have been. And sometimes, and here's the weird thing, guys, I can't say too much about it, but the reason I did this video was because somebody from DC reached out to me and said, here's the thing, man, why haven't you done a video on this? So I did a video on it. That's this video. All right. I will catch you a little bit later. Have a wonderful night and we'll go from there. Thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.